What's up? I believe we're live. It's Friday night and it's late. It's about 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I just poured myself kind of a healthy nightcap, a little bit of bourbon, thought I would hop on. Finally got my son down. He is 5 months old in a couple hours from now and is getting his first tooth in. So, unfortunately, he's a little bit cranky right now just because that's never fun. Having a new tooth come in through the gums. So he's in some pain. Did not want to go down very easily tonight. So it took me a little bit longer to get my kids down and hop on here to have a little bit of a chat with you guys. But nevertheless, thought I would hop on, see if anybody is available and wants to hang out tonight. I've got a couple things that I wanted to talk about. I don't really have anything to unbox tonight, but rather just wanted to talk about what's been working for me, a couple baits that I've tried out and or had success on this past week, and talk about anything else you guys might want to talk about just for say the next hour or so. Might even be a little bit less than that, but that's really more up to you guys. And depending on how my son does, he literally just went down about 5 minutes ago. He's been crying for a long time now. As I mentioned a minute ago, his first tooth just came in, or is popping through. So he's in quite a bit of pain, and even with a small amount of Tylenol and a giant bottle of milk tonight, he just was kind of refusing to go to sleep. So I couldn't tell you what the deal is, but it's part of parenting, right? I'm just glad that he's down now and hope that he sleeps well. Not for my sake, but for him. So Riley, Ron, what's up, guys? How you doing tonight? Thank you so much, Riley. Ron, hope you guys are doing well. Miguel, how's it going, man? Good to see you guys in here. Hope you're having a good Friday night. Just want to talk about some baits that I've been using this past week. Riley Belden with a $2 super chat. Really appreciate you. Hope all is well with you and your family as well. Thank you so much, Riley. So let's just kind of dive right into it if you guys don't mind, because who knows how long I'll be on. And I thought it would be better to not dilly dally. It does sometimes take people a little bit longer to get in here, and so they might end up missing a little bit of this content. But we can go back over it if need be. What's up, Kyle Hollinger? How you doing tonight, man? What up, Matt? How's it going? All right, guys, we're going to start off with Ron Holly's all-time favorite bait, and that is the Spro Rat 40 in the morning dawn color specifically. That's the part that Ron really loves to give me a hard time about. I'm throwing this on the rod that I just recommended to Ron not too long ago. Relatively cheap rod. Just the Lose Carbon Fire Speed Stick 7.3 heavy power fast action. As you can see, this rat has gotten absolutely beat up. I've probably caught well over 100 fish on this bait specifically. You can see that the bill is totally destroyed. The paint has held up surprisingly well, considering I've caught so many dang fish on it. But I have lost the tail. I tried to remove it. You have to use like a toothpick or whatever. If you can see it, it looks like a toothpick on this side. So you have to remove it from this side. I've struggled to get that out. So I glued on a couple of different soft plastic worms, and actually have just found it to get bit just as well with no tail. So this is a relatively affordable rat style wake bait that has done wonders for me in the summertime over the last handful of years. And yeah, you could probably tell that one of these hooks got bent out the other day on a decent sized fish. I tried to bend it back, but this thing is destroyed. So I'm going to finally need to swap out these Gamakatsu round bend hooks, or at least this front one. And I'll probably just switch to an Owner ST36. I don't know if this is a size 4 or a size 2, but the Rat 40 is really my preferred size because it's kind of like the Whopper Plopper 110, right? It strikes just a perfect middle ground of action and castability, fishability rather. So the thing weighs about an ounce, so can be used on a wide variety of gear, whereas that larger Rat 50 is quite a bit bigger. It's like 2.5 ounces and really needs to be thrown on a swim bait rod. So the 40 is big enough to where it gets lots of bites and big bites. Whereas once you step down to the 30 size rat, um, it's quite a bit smaller. Uh, and I find that I don't get bit nearly as often on it. So it's just kind of part of the deal. But the Rat 40 in the morning dawn is an awesome nighttime bait for me. And I had a super productive night on it earlier this week. Caught probably 20 fish on it in like an hour and a half. So awesome. All I brought out was that and a black and blue chatterbait. And I did not get a single bite on the chatterbait, believe it or not, but they were munching that rat. So I left it tied on and went out fishing the next day during a lunch break in the middle of the day. And I had brought out a Whopper Plopper, thinking I was going to swap it out for the rat and fish the rat a little bit. And literally all 4 rods that I brought out, all 4 baits that were tied on when I got out there, all got bit. I had another super productive session and caught like 20 fish again, albeit in about 2.5 to almost 3 hours, but super productive session. And I'll talk to you about some of the baits that I caught him on. So the rat, that time in the middle of the day, really only caught me 2 fish, but one of them was one of the better fish that I caught that day, and it's the one that bent out that hook. So anyway, let me catch up on these comments because I have a tendency to get behind. So sorry about that, guys. Yeah, Miguel, the rat definitely does slay, for sure. Ron hates the Morning Dawn rat. He says they got hooked because they were laughing at it. Funny. Kyle says, looking for a flipping rod and reel. Any suggestions? Sure, depends on what your budget is, man. Why don't you drop a little bit more information in the comments section in terms of what you're wanting to spend on that setup specifically, because we've all got a little bit of a different mindset and mentality when it comes to what we spend on our gear. So I like to stay kind of right in that mid-price range of $100 to $200 per rod, per reel. And so my combos end up ranging kind of in that anywhere from $200 to $400 if we're being honest. So yeah, you're right, Miguel. The 30 is a little bit more like a crankbait. It does dive more easily than the 40 or the 50. However, I think all of the rats are meant to be fished pretty slow. And I find that I do get bit better when I'm fishing it slow, and then I will occasionally speed it up for a few winds of the reel. But in general, just like most wake baits, I do find that they tend to catch more fish on a slow retrieve. So the cool thing about the rat from Spro is that you can walk it extremely easily as well. But I like to mix up the presentation. So Matthew says, man, forgot to tell you, got another K9 coming in. Very hard to get JDM color, like really hard. And the guy I know only had one, but Lucky should be here Monday. Definitely will send you a pic. Dude, you are super lucky. Unbelievable, man. Matt says he's got a flipping rod. He's got a 13 fishing black omen rod. Love it. Only thing is the guides. Uh, but they find that issue with newer line of rods. Sure. So under $300. Oh, you're all good, Abe. I started 10 minutes ago, man. And honestly, I'm sorry I was logged into my personal account during the Fluke Master live stream earlier when I replied to your question. So pardon seeing my full name, Tyler Long, on there, man. That was me. But maybe we could answer your question. So anyway, I use a couple different setups for heavy stuff. Let me show you. I thought I had it down here, man. So yeah, what I've been using the last few years, honestly, and it's cheap. I did just recommend it to Ron Hawley, aka Bassless Chap, in the chat. This is the Lose Carbon Fire Speed Stick. It's a cheap rod. It retails for like $80. This is the 7.3 heavy fast. And it has held up really well for me. It's got a wind grip handle and an EVA foam butt to it, but I have not had any issues with it. The guides are a little bit cheaper, but I throw a straight braid on this thing a lot and haven't had any issues with the guides. I also throw a braid to a leader a fair amount. So I would recommend that. You can find it discounted a lot of the time, but recently I did pick up this guy right here, which is quite a bit lighter. And this is the Quantum Smoke rod. The S3 rod. This is a 7.4 heavy, extra fast action. And I've got that paired up with a Quantum Smoke S3 reel, which I absolutely love these reels. I've got two of them. And so the rod was on clearance from Sportsman's Warehouse. Both the rod and the reel retail for like 150, 160 bucks, something like that. And in my opinion, are worth what you pay if you're paying full price. However, the rod was on sale for $100, and I just couldn't help but pick it up and try it out. So for this season, this is going to be kind of my step up when it comes to frogging and flipping and pitching. But this time of year, I'm usually going to have two of those tied on. So yeah, anyway, that's mostly what I'm using, but you know, it's a little bit tricky. You know, the main thing that I would recommend is something in the mid, 7.3 to 7.6 heavy power, fast action rod. You could go extra fast, but I would not go slower than a fast, and I would not go lighter than a heavy. And as for a reel, I would go with a 7-speed. You could go with an 8 as well. One reel that I've been really impressed with so far, and have two of them, I've got one in a 6-speed and one in an 8-speed, is the new Lose KBD reel. The other one that I showed you that I've got a couple of is this Lose, oh, what the hell do they call it? Help me out, guys. This is the Custom Black, okay? I like the big handles on it. It's got a decent spool. It's got a lot of drag on it. Like most Lose products, this is a standard, just 7:5 to 1 gear ratio. But the new KBD reels come in a 6-speed and an 8-speed, which is a little bit rare, and they retail just a little bit cheaper at like 140 bucks. So check those out, man. All right. So speaking of that KVD reel, here it is. This one has gotten a ton of use, and I've kind of beat it up so far this year, just because I find that I hook my baits onto the reel as opposed to the bait keeper on the rod, um, especially while I'm fishing. If I'm going from spot to spot, so you end up getting kind of a lot of scratches on the reel itself. But if I were to clean that off, it would still look pretty good. Um, Despite very heavy use. And this is actually a 6 speed that I use kind of as an all-purpose type of deal. I've been throwing, this is the Lose TP1 Black, which, if I were to swap the reel that I just showed you, that custom black, and put it on this rod, that's what you get when you buy uh the custom black combo from Reels, which is fantastic. And I think it's like 240 bucks for the combo, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but you do get a pretty good deal. I ended up buying them separately just because I was able to get the rods directly from Discount Tackle when they were in stock, and get them a little bit cheaper. So yeah, anyway, this jig right here caught me a couple really nice fish the other day. And this is the K2 jigs, or 2K. Shit, I should know. I'm pretty sure it's called 2K jigs. This is living rubber. And as you can see, this has a mushroom style Ned head on it and no weed guard at all. So this is essentially just like a Ned jig with living rubber. And I put a baby Pit Boss on there, Pit Boss Junior, and because of the living rubber, this thing has a slow fall to it. So when I see cruising fish, I can just pitch this out there a little bit ahead of them. It'll get their attention, and just one little pop before it hits the bottom. And I had multiple fish just come over and wolf that thing in. Uh, that was a pretty cool deal, especially in a relatively weedy body of water that I was at. So that was pretty sweet. Matt, you're not collecting at the moment. Yeah, whatever. You don't have to defend yourself to me or anybody in here. Collect all you want, man. Those are sweet baits. Um, selling them secondhand is another story, right? If you're just stockpiling so that you can offload them when they're really difficult to get and make a little bit of a profit, then that's a dirty move right there. But if you're in love with the baits and you just want to buy more of them because you've got a ton of confidence in it and you love them, then go for it, man. All you want. Justin Hamilton in the house. Dude, great to see you, man. God, my son is making a little bit of noise, and I'm hoping he's going to calm down. I've got him upstairs on the couch, like literally right above me. So I don't know if he can hear me or if he's just still restless and, in a little bit of pain since his tooth is coming in. But maybe I'll try to be a little bit quieter. Hopefully you guys don't hear him. If he starts ramping up too much, I might have to step away for a minute, or get off of here, or potentially grab him and bring him down here. But, that's not usually my style. So we'll see. Abe says, so I've been doing like you said, but when I get on the water and try to cast, I'm way late with my thumb. Dude, Abe, so how are you not backlashing in your backyard or wherever you're practicing? If you're flipping underhand or you're casting underhand slash sidearm, um, how are you not backlashing there and able to time it right with your thumb? Because when you cast overhand, um, the timing is about the same, and you can thumb it earlier. But here are the main two things that you're going to want to really dial in, Abe. And I'm sure you already know this information, but this is kind of bait casting 101 stuff. Okay. Um, there are really two things that you want to pay attention to. And I don't know what reel you're using, but this SLX is probably not the greatest example because I do have to go into the side plate to adjust the brakes. But tell me what reel you are using, and if you've got centrifugal brakes, if you have magnetic brakes that you can adjust on the side or not. If you do, it's a lot easier to dial that in. Like this guy, for example. These Lose Custom Blacks have both, but if you've got um, magnetic brakes that you can adjust on the side of your reel, that's going to make things a little okay. So you're using the SLX like me. So the most important thing, dude, is going to be the rate at which your bait falls when you engage the reel. Okay. I'm a little bit tangled up. What you'll see is that I'm twisted and this isn't going to be able to display properly. So that's about how fast I like the bait to fall. But by adjusting the spool tension and twisting it, well, clockwise to the right, righty tighty, lefty loosey, right? You tighten that bad boy up, and all of a sudden you find that the thing is going to fall a lot slower. So I just loosened it up, it's going to drop, right? If I tighten that thing up, it's not going to fall at all. You want to loosen it to where it just barely falls and you don't have to thumb it. Kind of like that, dude, okay? So naturally, you are slowing down the speed at which your spool is going to let line out, okay? And then secondarily, what you can do is adjust your brakes. But once you go in there, first thing you want to check is to make sure that you've got half of them on and half of them off, okay? And you'll be able to tell just by looking at them on this reel. Whoop. Come on, focus for me, buddy. That's annoying. So you can tell that these ones are on, the ones that are pressed down, and these ones are off that are pushed up, okay? I don't know why it's changing the focus, and that's super annoying to me, but if you've got 3 that are matching and 3 that are matching, you're good to go. That's how I would start out, and not fiddle with the brakes until it's more of a last ditch effort, quite honestly. But if you're still having issues, then I would turn 4 of the brakes on and start there. But spool tension knob is really where you're going to control casting distance most. Okay. So you want to be able to slow your bait down as you're starting the cast, and therefore slow the spool down. If you had magnetic brakes, I'd just say crank it up. to about 3/4. But with with internal brakes, centrifugal brakes, I would not mess with them as much initially. Okay, so that's my first tip. See if that makes a difference, because the tighter you have it, the less you will need to thumb the spool. But of course, you're gonna sacrifice casting distance. That's just a reality. And as you get more used to it, you can just loosen that ever so slightly. Try again, and just keep practicing thumbing the spool. And if you're a righty and you're using a right-handed reel, I I don't quite see eye to eye with that, but um, you need to be thumb on there, literally ready to thumb it the second that you make the cast. You don't bomb it and wait till it's halfway out there before you start thumbing it. Um, Thumbing the spool is like a all throughout the cast sort of deal. It's a line management deal. Um, Oftentimes by the time it's too late, it's too late. Um, so you want to be able to control with your thumb throughout the entire cast. Okay. You're probably right, Abe. You're trying to go too far when you cast big. Um, it's much better to start practicing with short to medium distance casts and start working your way further as you get the hang of it. You can put a little bit more power into it. But again, a lot of people, both in conventional casting, spinning, and fly fishing, tend to put a little bit too much of their body into casting. This is literally a flick of the wrist and a little bit um, with your elbow. Not too much shoulder action, okay? You're not going to really throw the whole thing into it. This is literally like just a flick of the wrist. And if you're pretty tight down, you should be able to make a 30-yard cast decently easily, depending on the line situation you've got. What do you have spooled up? You're a righty with a left hand handle. Yep, I've got that too, man. Right on. Okay, so that helps. We can see eye to eye on that for sure. But literally, once you go to make your cast, the second you finish your motion and that bait leaves the end of your rod, my thumb's already on the spool. I'm hardly giving it any forgiveness. Okay. Um, I think that's the main reason that people are backlashing, myself included, is once you get a little confident in your settings, um, sometimes you just want to let her fly and you just ding, and you just take your thumb right off. And most people assume that an overrun or a backlash typically happens when your bait hits the water, but more often than not, it's on the initial throw of the bait, with your settings being a little too light, or you just not thumbing the spool and too much line being let out, that it nests up on itself. So, yo, Matt, how many of the Clash Nines do you have? I agree, super versatile bait. Uh, and I'm glad that you're loving it, man. Someday I will get my hands on one, for sure. But today's not that day, right? Ape says I've got one more than half. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Um. Oh, pickle throw. Is your name Justin as well? I'm pretty sure you said your name is Justin. What's my favorite reel that I own? Dang, dude, that's a tough one. I would say probably my Daiwa Tatula SV. Um, but pretty close behind that is this guy that I just mentioned, and that's the Quantum Smoke S3 reel. Um, I just love how easy they are to dial in, and it's essentially a lot of the same technology as what you'd get out of a DC reel in terms of fine tuning and them not backlashing a lot. So, can you guys hear him? He's starting to ramp up a little bit. I'm sorry. Yo, I might have to bring my freaking son on this live stream right now. Would you guys mind? Would you freak out if you saw a little baby on the live stream? So Matt says, "Yeah, your thumb is already about to touch the spool as soon as you cast. Maybe a second just before it hits the water. I usually apply my thumb. Yeah, I find that if you're having issues with backlashing, better to have your thumb on the ready and on the spool really at all times. If you're using 10-pound Seagar, keep in mind with thinner line like that, it is going to run off the spool faster. So you do want to have it tightened down that much more, man. Yeah, I do use an SLX, but really I've only got the one, and it's the standard model. It's not the XT, um, it's not the DC. This is just the 151, and I've got it in a 6-speed. I don't quite remember why I ended up doing that. I prefer a 7-speed reel kind of for everything, but for the most part, I have been very happy with this reel so far. Um, I use this mostly on my top water baits that are lighter weight. So this right here is a 6'8" medium, moderate fast rod, and so I'll throw walking baits and smaller whopper ploppers, um, smaller rats, bigger poppers, um, kind of a wide variety of stuff on that setup. Abe says, I don't get a lot of bird's nests, but a lot of bait hitting the water right in front of me. What? Dude, that's a totally different story. Um, that just means that what? I'm sorry to laugh, man. It's not really amusing. Um, but that tells me that you're actually not letting go um, of the spool itself until too late in your motion. So literally, same with a spinning reel, same with a fly rod. Um, you have to launch it right here, and it sounds like you're launching here. So you're making your motion, and you're maybe engaging the spool, right? Click it down. You've got your thumb on this spool, and then as you make your cast, you're not letting go to actually launch the bait until you're pointed too far down. And it really needs to be like right here. If you let go too early, the thing's going to launch straight in the air. If you let go too late, it's going to plop right in front of you, right? So that's just a little bit more of like fundamentals when it comes to technique. I don't know what to tell you. Kyle says, yeah, I can get the baby. Uh, I thought he was calming down for a minute, so maybe I will go get him because he has ramped back up. Ron says cool. Matt says cool. All right, guys. I'm going to freaking go grab him real quick. He might not tolerate being here in the light, given that he's been trying to sleep a little bit, but we'll see. Now he's getting quiet again. I don't know what to do. I'm going to show you one other bait before I may or may not have to go get him, because I don't want to handle too many treble hooks while I've got him. I showed you guys this bait in an unboxing video just on my live stream last week when I picked up that depth slide swimmer in the 175. Picked up a couple poppers to go with it. This is one of the two Megabass Pop X's that I picked up. I just posted a picture of this on my Instagram earlier tonight. And I don't know if you'd be able to see if I could get this damn thing to focus. But this thing has already gotten munched. Like I've already landed probably 15 plus fish on it in just a few days of fishing. In fact, one of the times that I went out, I landed 6 or 7 fish, of which like 4 were all 2.5 to 3 pounds, and really good fish for where I was. And that was the very first time that I'd used this bait. So very, very impressed. Now, it is a small popper, and does need to be thrown on either BFS gear or more likely spinning gear. And so since I'm not really into the BFS game yet, I threw this on one of my spinning setups, and probably something a little bit too light, if we're being honest. This here is like my Ned rig and Nico rig, wacky rig, just general like finesse worm technique rod. So it is a 7-foot medium light, which in my opinion is a little bit light for a top water, but worked just fine. Here for a reel, I absolutely love this reel. Bang for the buck. Would recommend it 1,000 times over. It's the Daiwa Exceller LT. Just sturdy, really well made. Love the way that the drag sounds. And yeah, the reel handle is all metal and super smooth, and just really happy with it. And it retails for like 80 bucks. So, you know, all in $180 for this combo. And it has exceeded my expectations for sure. But the popper was fantastic. So surprisingly, you know, I've got this on a relatively short leader, maybe just 2.5 feet of fluorocarbon, believe it or not. So because I usually use this for Ned rigs and wacky rigs, Nico rigs, things like that, drop shotting, you know, I throw braid to a leader. That's 20-pound high vis. I forget what braid it is. That's the Suffix 832 braid, and then I throw it to a 6 or 8 pound fluorocarbon leader. Usually Seagar Invisex, and it works great for me. But that was the only setup I had with me when I brought that popper out, and I didn't have any mono for leader material where I was. So unfortunately, that was just kind of what I was left with. But I did notice a couple of things about this popper, and specifically that it makes a big, big difference where your knot is located. If you guys notice on this bait, Sorry, my line's all up in the camera. So if you guys notice, this line tie is up high on the nose of the bait. Um, and my knot is tied kind of off the middle right now. Well, if it's off the middle or it's up on the line tie, because this thing has a tail down posture, this thing is just going to make a much more subtle sound. You can still walk it just fine, but it's not going to bloop very loud like a traditional popper would. On the other hand, if you move this knot down to the bottom of the line tie, like you see there, this thing will almost pull underwater, especially with the fluoro leader. But in general, you're going to get a much more aggressive bloop out of it. So I found that I was able to work this thing like a popper and a walking bait quite easily, even on this lighter 6-pound fluorocarbon leader, and without a loop knot. You know, I already got people commenting on my Instagram post saying I should be using a loop knot. And quite honestly, I don't fully agree with that. Uh, and that's just me personally. I will use a loop knot when tying direct to like a walking bait, but not necessarily with a popper. So, gosh, it's crowded in here. I've got too many rods. I got 2 over here and 3 over here. So just wanted to show you that bait before I may or may not go get my son. But let me catch up on these comments real quick. That's a good point, Matt. Abe, throw a heavier bait, man. If you're using a bait caster, you really need to pay attention to um, the appropriate weight size for the rod that you're using. You know, every rod is going to be rated for a certain type of lure. So, for example, this top water rod, this 6/8 medium power, moderate fast action, is going to handle lighter weight lures. So 1/8 to 1/2 ounce. Okay. Whereas on the other hand, this heavy power fast action rod is going to handle 3/8 to 1 ounce. Or this other one up to 1.5 ounces. Yeah, 7/16 to 1.5. So honestly, you need to pay attention to that. And if you're throwing a lightweight lure on a bait casting setup, you really have to have your settings dialed in. And that could be a serious problem for you. So if I were you, I'd start out with something that's at least 3/8 of an ounce, if not more like a half. Okay. Yeah, Luke, totally agree. The popper is fantastic, dude. The Pop X um, has been very impressive to me. You know, to be quite honest, do not have a ton of confidence in poppers in general. I do throw them with some success, but I was pleasantly surprised at just how effective that Pop X has been for me. Just this past week, you know, I picked it up last week, literally got it and this guy right here, which hasn't seen the water, but I would imagine will do just as well. And I look forward to using it. So, yeah, that thing's already taken a beating and is a sweet little bait. Dude, you're all good, Abe. Yeah, and Matt, that's what I was trying to explain to Abe is that when you loosen that tension knob, you want it to be falling slow enough to where when it hits the ground, you don't have any overrun on your reel. Um, if you loosen it up too fast, that thing's going to hit the ground and you're going to see a little bit of a backlash. Not much, but you'll see some. Um, and if it's too tight, the thing's just not really going to fall or it'll just barely trickle. You want to find kind of that sweet spot where it's falling slow, at least while you're kind of figuring things out. As you get more confident, that becomes less and less important because you can control it with your thumb. Luke says top water don't work too well out here in Ohio. Really? Sorry to hear that, man. I think maybe you're just not trying the right place at the right time. Um, Dude, if you get out early, if you get out late, if you get out at nighttime, and if you're throwing the right baits, you can definitely catch them in Ohio on top water. I would be willing to bet. What kind of top water baits are you trying to catch them on, dude? Matt says, I love them, man. I just use them on my crank casting rod and it works great. You talking about the Pop X? You throw it on your crankbait casting rod? Because that's pretty impressive. I mean, like I mentioned, I could probably throw it on my Tatula SV, but I've got that spool up with 12-pound fluoro, and yeah, I'm not about to do that. So if I were to re-spool with braid and go braid to a leader, with that, I could certainly get away with it because that rod is actually meant to be a top water slash jerkbait rod. Um, uh, Slash crankbait rod, shallow cranking and top water. I think it's a 7 foot um, medium, and I love it for shallow crankbaits specifically. I just find it to be a little bit long for most of my top water applications, so I've kind of dedicated it exclusively to crankbaits and lighter, um, moving baits. I will use some worms or lighter Texas rigs, little things like that I can get away with. But otherwise, I'm really throwing shallow crankbaits on it. Luke says I need to get myself a good quality spinning reel and rod. I've got 4 higher price bait casters, and I need to get a good spinning one. Um, well, again, everything is relative, right? I mean, my setup was $180 um, for my rod and reel combo. So not expensive, and yet I've been extremely satisfied with it. I don't think you need to go out and buy a Shimano Stratic or a Daiwa ballistic, those $230 spinning reels and a super high end, two, three, $400 spinning reel or rod. I just don't think it's necessary. Um, when there is a lot out there kind of in that middle range. This is $100 rod, a St. Croix Triumph. I was literally just trying it out because I don't have any other St. Croix rods, but know that they make good stuff. Um, Now it's got its downfalls, but they're not many. I think the grip and the reel seat could be improved upon just a little bit, but you're going to see some sacrifices when it comes to a lower price point like that. So, and Matt says a good quality, cheaper reel that I love is the Daiwa Regal. I don't know how it is, how it has an aluminum frame, but it costs $60. Very nice drag, casts amazing. Yeah, pretty similar to what I've got in this guy. Um, Again, the Exceller, I've just been extremely, extremely happy with. I find that when I'm testing out spinning reels, a lot of what I'll do in the store is literally close my eyes and just hold the reel and reel it to see just how smooth it feels in the hand. Because with some reels, And I wish I had all of my gear down here to be able to show you. But for a long time, I thought the Fluger President XT was a great reel, bang for the buck. It's like also same price point, about $80. It's got a smaller cork handle on it. The drag sounds nice, and it's relatively smooth. But when you compare it to something like the Exceller from Daiwa, it's not even close. So, yeah, sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent there. Let me try and catch up. Matt says, when using the Pop Max, use a snap. It makes it walk way easier and give it a little more action. Again, and I probably will with the Pop Max, but with the Pop X, I'm more so just trying to work it as a traditional popper, probably 75 to 80% of the time, and then walk the bait the other 15 to 20% of the time. So, really, I want that direct connection to the bait, so that when I tighten my slack up, I can pop the bait and it's going to create that bubble, that bloop, the exact kind of action that I want out of a traditional popper. And I will work it in the strike zone on kind of a 1, 1, 2 um, type of cadence. Sometimes throw in 3, but usually just 1, 2, 1. Um, and I find that they tend to eat it most of the time as I'm working it on a 2. So, 1, 1, 2, boom, and they eat it right on that second pop. At least they were this week. So, if I'm making longer casts because I've been working the area and I'm moving on, then in that instance, I will, make my cast, let the ripples dissipate, work the bait a little bit, with that same cadence that I mentioned. And when I feel like I'm kind of out of the strike zone or the fish that can see the bait are not hitting it, then I'll start to walk the bait. And I find that I don't really have an issue walking the bait without a loop knot or a snap. So I appreciate the advice, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll give it a shot just to see what sort of difference it actually makes for me. We'll have to see about that. Abe says it's a Shimano Zodius medium light finesse. Are you still talking about what you've been throwing on, dude? Okay, medium light finesse rod. Interesting. How heavy are the lures that you're throwing, dude? Because if I were you, I would step up to um, probably the heavier end of the spectrum of what that rod can handle, at least just for the sake of practicing. Max 1/4, that's ridiculous, dude. Well, it's no wonder you don't want that to be what you're learning on, quite frankly. Um, Damn, do you have any other bait casting rods? Because that is wild. That's super light, man. You really got to get the hang of a bait caster uh, before you start stepping into something that's that specialized. Um, wow. Yeah, I agree, Justin. Abe's learning on a Ferrari. Um, that's a great rod, but very specialized for finesse techniques and lightweight lures. That is hardcore. And to be quite honestly, you're much better off using something right in the range of a 7 foot medium heavy, something that's going to handle anything from a 1/4 ounce to 3/4 of an ounce or something like that. You know, um, damn, that's pretty wild. If you got something that can handle middleweight lures where you could just throw, a jig, for the sake of casting, um, because you're in your backyard, right? You're not out at the lake. Um, I would just throw on like a 3/8 ounce jig, um, and do what we talked about in terms of adjusting your spool tension, just so that it's falling slow, hitting the ground, and not overrunning. Um, and then start practicing casting, um, and have your thumb ready. Thumb the spool if you need to, but make sure you're releasing the bait, here and not here. But I get what you're saying. Odds are you were just using way too light of gear. Um, you thought it was max 1/4, so you're throwing a 1/8 ounce lure. Matt was absolutely right that you're throwing like paper on a bait caster, dude. That's intense. Intense. Matt says, yeah, the Pop X. The rod I use is a stiffer type of crankbait rod that only has a glass tip but a carbon main blank and is actually pretty cheap. Right on. Nice, man. Sounds like it would work just quite well. Justin says he's going with a Victory spinning rod and a Vanford. Okay, really? Okay. Stepping it up. My man, getting serious. No doubt. I mean, you're going to be happy with that for sure, right? The Vanford is the new Stratic. Like I mentioned, if you're wanting to go, upper echelon, uh, without going into insanity, and get a freaking Stella, um, I think you're going to be extremely happy with a setup like that. If you're spending ballpark 4, 5, $600 on a combo, um, you better be happy with it, right? Only thing is, if you're spending that much, you might as well get something that's going to be a little bit versatile in terms of what you can use it for. I personally prefer to go out with 3 or 4 rods at a time when I'm bank fishing, and I will bring like 1 spinning rod and 2 or 3 bait casters. So I prefer that my spinning rod be able to do everything super finesse uh, that I want or need it to do. Otherwise, then I'm going to step down and use either that shorter top water slash jerkbait rod that I showed you. That's a 6/8 medium, moderate, fast, or I'm just going to go to my all around 7 foot. Um, Actually, I think it's a 7.2. Yeah, 7.2 medium, heavy, fast. Um, and like this jig was no problem dialing it in. Um, and it's maybe a 1/4 ounce, whereas this rod is rated for a 1/4 to 1. And so anyway, depends. I mean, if you've got a boat and you're going to load down and it's very technique specific that you want that Victory and Vanford, uh, then good for you, man. Well, holy shit, man. Yeah, if you're stepping up straight up from Walmart spinning combos to a Victory and Vanford, yeah, that's a jump, dude, for sure. Tim Dunn, what's up, man? Tim says, I overemphasize the pop to make the loudest bloop possible. Then I let it sit a bit longer than normal. I catch fewer fish, but they're often bigger fish. Yep. Yep. Definitely, man. I hear what you're saying. And I had the same experience this past week is when working the bait slower, um, the quality of fish that I caught tended to go up just a little bit. Now, I was never working the bait super fast, right? Um, it was still taking me 45 seconds to a minute per cast, at least, right? And I'm not making long bomb casts either. Um, but at the same time, I'm not letting the bait sit for 10 seconds in between pops. I'm maybe waiting 2 or 3 seconds um, before I make another 1 or another 2 pops on it. So I would say I was working it medium slow, if that makes sense. And Matt says the lowest I go on my baitcaster is a quarter ounce. LOL, that isn't BFS. No, you're right. No, BFS is like a 1/64th to 1/16th, maybe a 1/8, right? Um, but really, a BFS is where you start to interchange a spinning setup, spinning reel for a baitcaster instead. So, anything lighter than what you'd be comfortable throwing on a baitcaster. But again, there are reels like the Tatula SV that I have and the newer Zillion and, a bunch of other more refined reels where you can throw lightweight lures, no problem. You could do a quarter, you could go down to an eighth probably, um, easily throw a 3/16, but that's kind of where the line is blurred a little bit. Yeah, I know. You're pretty much only throwing lures that are above an ounce, and you're absolutely right that your line has to be shooting out like a bullet. No, Abe. Honestly, it's not your reel, it's your rod, dude. Straight up. You could swap your reel onto your other. Did you say you have a quantum rod? Um, because quite frankly, you really just need to get the hang of using a bait caster before you start using such a refined rod, and that's just how it goes. So you need to get used to the timing, the feel of it, switching different weights of lures so that you know how and when to adjust the spool tension and perhaps even the brakes on your reel. Um, Before then, you step down to something that's super lightweight on a bait casting setup. Max 1/4 on a bait caster. I mean, that's pretty intense, dude. I hope some of this, us just kind of brainstorming and talking it through helps you a little bit in terms of understanding what your gear is and how you can get started and practice a little bit, man. So keep us posted about how it goes. Love to know about your progress. Justin says, I like to spend most of my high end cash on casting reels, in my opinion. Yeah, I do too. Um, that's where I spend most of my money on rods and reels is into reels on the casting side. But again, I still am not a big spender, as someone who's trying to create content on on both YouTube and Instagram, and I'm still learning myself and trying to educate other people. I try not to be too much of an enthusiast when it comes to gear and or baits that I'm using. I like to stay kind of right in that mid price point range because instead of having 3 or 4 super high end setups, I prefer to have 10 to 15 decent setups, right? Not cheap stuff, but all my reels are going to range from 100 to $300. Um, and all of my rods are kind of in that, 80 to $200. So nothing crazy, right? Um, but also nothing dirt cheap. Like I've been there, done that, and have broken plenty of stuff or just stepped up and realized what I was missing out on as I upgraded. And it's entirely possible that that will happen again when I decide to step up my game and and just invest that much more money into what I have. But for now, I like to be more technique specific. I'm not all that sensitive to gear, uh, other than just knowing what's pretty good. You know what I mean? Ron says broomstick, string, and a safety pin and a bent safety pin. Yeah, pretty much, dude. Yeah, the KBD reel is sick. Like I said, I've got two of them. One of them I haven't even gotten out on the water yet, and it's an 8-speed. This 6-speed, like I said, has gotten a ton of work. This is my do everything setup: 7.2 medium heavy, fast action rod, and this is a 6-speed reel. I've thrown chatterbaits, swim jigs, Tokyo rigs, weightless soft plastics. Um, I've kind of done everything on it this year and been extremely happy with it. Um, More so the rod than the reel, but the reel has been great. I just find that with certain techniques like swim jig, chatterbait, faster moving presentations, that 6-speed has been a little bit slow for me and my preference. But I think the reel is dynamite, made really well for the price. And of course, KVD is going to be picky, and I think it says a lot that he single-handedly was really able to change a lot of the way that Luz makes their gear. And I'm sure there's more when it comes to, like the internals of this guy. Let me see if, first of all, most of Luz lower end reels are not going to have um, both types of brakes for you to be able to adjust. So that's pretty cool. But then um, the handle knobs are EVA foam, and it does have a well, I guess that's not unique, that the spool tension clicks, but the way that the reel feels in hand when you engage the reel, just feels quite a bit more sturdy. Um, the reel feels a lot more refined than a traditional Luz LFS reel. So, to be honest, I've been very, very happy with the reel so far. Would highly recommend it to anybody, and I did to Ron Holly, who I think has purchased one himself. Matt says Hook Rash sent me swim bait tracers in a color they don't have on their website yet to test, to see how good they are and if they're going to work right now. Might have an adjustment to them. Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, love buying my JDM lures, but I do love a good rod or reel here and there. Just feels different, like you're holding an Excalibur. Yeah, no, I totally hear you. I do have a Shimano Tranx reel, which feels fantastic. It almost feels too heavy duty for what I'm used to, if we're being honest. But I hear you for sure. And someday I will step up. It's just when it comes to the content that I'm trying to make and the people that I'm trying to cater to, I am just almost intentionally avoiding the enthusiast market. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to fly fishing, I'm the opposite. I've only got two setups, and one of them is, I don't even want to admit, but outrageously expensive. Something in the ballpark of $1,500, um, just for the rod and reel. And so it's not like I'm not that way with some things, um, but I've just taken a different approach when it comes to bass fishing, and the fact that I do it so much more frequently. I beat my stuff up. I don't have a boat, and so the opportunities, the way that I fish are a little bit different than they are when I fly fish, and I'm wading in local rivers here in Colorado. So I go all out on all of my gear, from my waders and boots uh, to my rod and reel and everything else for fly fishing. So Ron says, got my bellows gill today. Smells like corn nut oil. Yeah. No, what did I say? Smells like Fritos, in my opinion. But yeah, man, kind of like popcorn, kind of like Fritos. Smells good though, right? I mean, let's be honest. Got to grab some Fritos to check it out. Yeah. Who else said Fritos? Ron picked up the KVD combo and the carbon fiber combo. Right on, man. I think you'll be happy with that. Well, Abe, you got to start somewhere. You're up. I admire the fact that you admit that you're learning all this and you haven't even started bass fishing yet. Um, you're signed up for a striper tournament, um, searching on YouTube, and you found out all this stuff, and you went crazy. Well, dude, good for you, man. Um, it is easy to get addicted to this stuff for sure. Yeah, Matt said it smells like Fritos. I totally agree. Hook Rash website that sells swim bait armor sent me swim bait tracers. Okay, yeah, I've seen that. Right on. Well, I hope that that works out, goes well for you. Guys, I wanted to mention a little something because recently I showed you guys the Picasso shock blade, right? And specifically, this is the shock blade Pro in the weedless version. I forget what it's called, but it has this titanium weed guard on it. And I picked it up because it's going to be one of the few bladed jigs on the market that will easily come through heavy cover, especially wood, which is rare for a bladed jig, right? There are only a handful of chatterbaits or bladed jigs that I use when fishing around wood. Otherwise, I would go to a different presentation. I'd throw a crankbait or otherwise. But I decided to pick up the Shockblade Pro because I had heard such good things about it. And there are some people on YouTube like, Jim LaDuca from Tackle Junkie 81, um, who claims that he thinks this thing starts up just as fast and vibrates just as hard as the jackhammer. Now, these are both chartreuse and white side by side. Um, and I will say, I got an opportunity to fish this past week, and I have a couple of observations. First of all, per the advice of not just Ron Hawley, but also Matt, saying that he thought that the Chase Bait Love Bug would make a good chatterbait trailer. I decided to throw it on the back of this guy right here. And I will say the action was intense. Those hood wings make a lot of commotion. And these legs, because they're thick, they do want to spread apart a little bit, and they make more of a profile than an action. They do have that ultra vibe speed craw look and kick to them, but it's a relatively subtle kick on the back of a chatterbait. And I find that these tails kind of separate, and it makes the bait look wider. But when comparing the jackhammer and the Picasso shock blade, the main two things that I knew, um, or the main things that I could tell right away, are without bending this blade. First of all, um, this bait, the shock blade, stays down in the water column extremely well. Um, like better than the jackhammer, better than other bladed jigs. However, it vibrates and thumps really hard. It starts up fast, it vibrates hard, um, but it's like using a deeper diving crankbait. Like it creates a lot of pull on the rod, more so than a jackhammer does. And the jackhammer, you can feel it thumping. Um, you can almost hear it through your rod with how much noise it makes from the blade hitting the head. Um, it, it- you probably don't believe that, but you can almost hear it while fishing the bait. Whereas the shock blade, not so much. Um, and it, as a result, it doesn't seem as erratic to me as the jackhammer does. It does start up really fast. It does thump really hard. Probably is loud underwater, but I'm still going to go with the jackhammer the vast majority of the time, and that's just me. Um, Guys, I hate to say it, but I really got to pee, and I think I'm going to dip out of here. It's already 11:15 my time. I've been on for an hour and 15 minutes. I looked like shit. I'm pretty tired, and I don't know how my son fell back asleep, but he did. Um, Matt says, "Did you see those new chase baits, jerk baits? They look sick. Um, Soft jerk baits or hard jerk baits? No, hard jerk baits, decoy hooks. No, I haven't seen them yet, man. Got to check those out. Hey guys, I'm going to top this bourbon off and top this live stream off. Hopefully, I might be able to be back on tomorrow night. If you guys have any suggestions of what you want to talk about, let me know. I do have 2 packages in the mail. One from Discount Tackle, one from somewhere I don't want to mention because they're a direct competitor. But I picked up a special bait that I want to show you guys. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Good to see you. Good to hang out. Thank you for your support. And see you soon. Peace.